Hey, how's it going everyone? It's Wasim here from the channel Handsome Smiles. Welcome to another video. So today is going to be 12 fragrances, one for each month. So I saw this tag going around on YouTube. I came across a video. It's quite an old video. I think this tag was going around about 3 to 4 years ago, but I never took part back then. I saw the video and I thought it was a really interesting concept. So the concept is quite simple. You can only have 12 fragrances and wear only one of them for that month. That was a very interesting and not totally realistic, but quite a fun topic. So I thought I'd give it a go for myself. So let's get started with January. So January here in the UK is quite cold, quite wintry, and a fragrance which works really well for me in the winter is Fahrenheit from the house of Christian Dior. So how does Fahrenheit smell? So it's got this beautiful green, sort of grassy green opening, this sort of ozonic sort of feeling, but mostly what you pick up in the opening. And this fragrance Fahrenheit is like so infamously known for is the note of the gasoline or petroleum sort of smell. So it smells like petrol. And there's the greenness in the opening, the ozonic sort of greenness in the opening. It sort of gives off the vibe for me is like someone is mowing their lawn with a petrol or gasoline powered lawn mower. That's the sort of smell that this gives off. Even though the opening is quite green, quite ozonic, has that sort of petroleum sort of smell, it doesn't scream wintry from the forefront. But as the fragrance develops, it becomes this gorgeous, like leathery sort of scent, super masculine. On my skin, this lasts around 10 hours, excellent longevity. Projection is very strong as well on my skin. This is like an older bottle. I believe this is like a 2008, 2009 or 2010 sort of batch. Not a pure vintage, but performance on my skin is excellent. I've heard a lot of horror stories about the newer formulations. I've not had any experiences myself, but the newer formulations from what I've heard gear more towards a vanillic sort of dry down, whereas this one is just ultra masculine, super leathery sort of dry down. I can see myself wearing this a lot in the winter, so January is an awesome month for this one. So January's pick is Fahrenheit from the house of Christian Dior. Now moving on to February, still a little bit cold here in the UK, but the days are slightly longer now compared to, say, the December, November, January sort of time. So you see a little bit more sunshine throughout the day, still a little bit cool. For me, a great choice for February would be Rouge from the house of Guerlain. This opens up with a really beautiful lemon note. And the lemon in this, it comes across very candy-like. It's got this fizzy, lemony sort of candy feel. It smells like this candy we get here in the UK, or sweet, called lemon sherbet. It's this tangy sort of fizzy, lemony sort of smell that this gives off. As in the opening, you also pick up a beautiful Brazilian rosewood. The rosewood gives off this spicy, floral, woody sort of smell. In the heart of the fragrance, you pick up a slight subtle rose, gives off this floral rosy quality, but mainly you pick up the note of the carnation, which gives off more of this spicy clove-like sort of feeling. As the fragrance dries down, I think this is where this shines in the cooler months. So what would work fantastically in February would be the dry down is like this sweet, dusty sort of powdery sort of smell. It's got notes of vanilla, this touch of patchouli, a touch of leather as well. But the dry down is this epic, dusty, powdery sweetness on your skin. I think that would work perfectly for the month of February. Moving on to March. March here in the UK is still quite cold, and still cold, but again, compared to February, we see a little bit longer sunshine throughout the day. A fragrance which works really well for me in March would be Dior Homme from the house of Christian Dior. So this fragrance opens up with a beautiful brightness of like lavender and iris. The iris gives off this sort of buttery, powdery, sort of waxy quality on my skin. Many people compare the iris to feel like a makeup back or like a lipstick sort of vibe. Dior Homme, but for me, Dior Homme Intense has more of that lipsticky vibe. The iris in here is there, but there's a note of cocoa which on my skin just blooms beautifully, which makes this a stunning fragrance to wear in the slightly cooler weather, where it's just heating up just a little bit more compared to, say, February or January, December time. So a little bit of sunshine, it's still cool, and this one really works well for me during that time. I could see myself wearing this in March every single day if I needed to. A super versatile scent. This one works for work, works formally, works casually on a date. Fantastic. Beautiful blend of like iris, lavender and cocoa. Performance on my skin. This is now known as Dior Homme Original, but this is an older bottle from 2017, I think. The black stem, I think that was a formulation in 2010. Prior to that, there was a 2006 release that was created by Olivier Polge, best known for his work at Chanel, I believe, which had a silver stem. This is the later one by Francois Demachy with the black stem, but this for me is a masterpiece. When this came out, the note of iris in male perfumery wasn't really seen in Western perfumery, and this really for me epitomizes the fashion industry at that time, or male masculinity of that time, the early 2000s, mid 2000s. There was that metrosexual sort of persona given to men at that time. You know, a man that's well groomed, good haircut, well dressed, you know, very different from the masculine vibe of the 70s or 80s. It was a metrosexual vibe. David Beckham epitomizes that time, and I think this sort of fragrance epitomizes him. This was a modern masculine classic of that time. Dior Homme for the month of March. Now, moving on to April. Now, April gets a little bit warmer here in the UK compared to the 3 months prior of the year. And again, we see a little bit more of sunlight. So in the winter, sunlight is very short here. Sunlight was very short here in the UK. I think in like the December time, you get sunlight at like 8 o'clock, especially where I am, 8 o'clock in the morning until like maybe if you're lucky 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it's just night all the way through until 8 o'clock the next day. But April, we see a little bit more of the sunlight coming out, and it's just spring is just feeling like it's around the corner. A fragrance that would work really well for me in the April time would be this English masterpiece from the house of Ormonde Jayne. This is Ormonde Man. Ormonde Man is a beautiful mix on my skin of brightness, freshness and woodiness and dryness. The opening is a beautiful blast of citruses and fresh pink pepper. The pink pepper gives a little bit of a fresh, warm sort of spice in the opening. And as the fragrance develops, it becomes a little bit drier on my skin and has this gorgeous woodiness. I believe there's a note of a cedar wood in the dry down, and it's just a mix of juicy citruses, fresh spiciness and dry woodiness in the dry down. This fragrance uses a lot of Issey Super, and Issey Super on my skin works magically in terms of like a dry cedar wood sort of smell. Ormonde Man is a very sophisticated, classy, sort of elegant, gentlemanly sort of scent. Imagine the typical English gent, you know, he's suited in a nice Savile Row suit, nice real creams, slick back hair. That's the sort of vibe that this gives off. A very sophisticated sort of man, a man who's a complete professional and is doing well in life. That's the sort of vibe Ormonde Jayne gives me. Performance is very, very good on my skin. I get around 10 hours of longevity. Projection is good. It's not beast mode or anything, but it's very good for the 10 hours. A gorgeous signature scent worthy fragrance. I think this works really well in April. Now, moving on to May. May definitely seems a little bit more like springtime here in the UK, and fragrance that works really well for me when it's heated up slightly a little bit more, but not blazing hot or anything like the summer months. So May is really the month before summer starts here in the UK. So it's heating up, but there's still a little bit of a chill in the air. It's nice and sunny. A fragrance that works really well for me would be Rose 31 from the house of Labo. This fragrance is, for me, really a fragrance when I wear, I feel like it was created for me, for my skin chemistry. It's got rose in the name, but it opens up with beautiful, fresh spices coming from the note of the cumin. Now, cumin, some people struggle on their skin. It gives off the note of like BO for them, or it doesn't work really well on their skin. But for me, the cumin in this, it's just magical. It really works with my skin chemistry. The cumin gives off this fresh, musky, sort of spicy opening. As the fragrance develops, that fresh, spicy opening is subdued a little bit with the note of the rose. The rose really sweetens this up. The rose in here isn't like a jammy rose that you get in, say, Rose d'Arabie or More Than Words from Giorgio. The rose in here is fresh, clean, bright rose. That's the sort of smell that this gives off. But it's not overly overpowering rose. So the rose isn't overpowering that it smells like rose water. Don't think this is like Lyric Man from the house of Ambre. The rose is really under control from the spices that you get in the opening, the cumin. And as the fragrance dries down, it picks up gorgeous woodiness from the note of the cedar wood. There's a touch of vetiver as well. But the vetiver is like the dry, woodsy vetiver. It's not the green, bright vetiver that you get in, say, grey vetiver from Tom Ford. The vetiver in here is just subtle to help ease the brightness of the rose. And deep in the dry down, also pick up musk on my skin. This works really well on my skin, and it's the perfect scent for me, I think, in May, when it's the springtime, just before the summer is around the corner. It's warm, but it's not too hot. It's nice and bright outside. You know, the trees have blossom. You're going on walks with your date, be it with your partner. I would go on a walk with my wife, and summer is just around the corner. I think Rose 31 works really well on my skin. I've said this before, but Rose 31 on my skin, when I wear it, it feels like my skin is emitting a beautiful fragrance. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a fragrance. I just smell nice, you know. I just have a nice smelling aura around me. Performance on my skin, Rose 31 works really well for me. I get around 8 hours of longevity. Projection is in the moderate range. It's not beast mode. It's an inviting scent. I can detect it on me, so I'm very pleased with that. But it's not a scent where you walk in and people are going to be smelling you. If they come closer to you, your date comes closer to you, then this fragrance will make you smell really, really nice. A great pick for me for May. This is Rose 31 from the house of Labo. Now moving on to June. Now June here in the UK, we have longer days, long sunshine. The sun is definitely coming out nice and warm here in the UK. There's still some days where it's raining. It's the UK, so it does rain sometimes, and it's a little bit cooler, but it's definitely warmer than the wintry months. Fragrance which works really well for me in June would be Dolce&Gabbana Homme from the house of Dolce&Gabbana, or D&G for short. This is really an Italian classic. It opens up with beautiful citruses and the note of the lavender. The opening is bright, citrusy, gives off that immediate sort of summery sort of feel on my skin. The lavender gives this sort of soapy, powdery quality as well that I get in the opening. As the fragrance dries down, it gets this lovely, in the heart of the fragrance, you pick up a little bit of the white florals like neroli. It gives off a really clean sort of quality, and as it dries down, it picks up a little bit of a pepper and a tobacco, which gives it a little bit of a sort of a spicier, warmer sort of kick in the dry down. But mostly on my skin, this is about the citruses and the lavender. Performance on my skin, I get around 6 hours of longevity. Projection is good, very good for the first 2 hours. After that, it sits a little bit closer to the skin, but it works really well in the warm, sunnier days here in the UK. When I wear this, I feel like an Italian gent. Gives off a Venice sort of vibe for me, or even sort of like a Mediterranean sort of vibe. Maybe I'm relaxing on a Greek island, that sort of vibe Dolce&Gabbana Homme gives me. So that's the pick for June. Now moving on to July. July is a time where we do see some heat waves. If we're lucky here in the UK, there are some days where it's blisteringly hot and very humid. Fragrance that works really well for me in July and any day in the summer here in the UK is L'Odyssée pour Homme. So this is a fragrance which combines many different characteristics. It has florals, there's notes of lily in here, and a mix of this sort of marine, oceanic, sort of watery sort of smell. Not oceanic, but watery sort of smell, like an aquatic sort of smell. There's a bit of woodiness in this. There's so much going on in this fragrance, but for me, this is summer in a bottle, and a real positive of this fragrance, or its real selling point for me, is its performance. Wow, I'm just smelling this right now. It's got this woodiness, brightness, citrusy. The note of yuzu is most prominent in this fragrance. There's some spices in here as well. This sort of watery sort of vibe works so well. Longevity for a freshy, summery sort of scent that would work really well in July. This lasts on my skin around 10 hours very easily. Projection is strong as well. A fragrance which garners me a lot of compliments over the years. I've had this in my collection, I think maybe over 12 years, and it's probably one of my most complimented fragrances in my collection. I don't care about compliments, but I wear this one not wanting compliments, but I do get compliments wearing this one. It's so pleasing on the skin, and I would just love wearing this in the summer when it's hot outside. This is the one that I reach for. Smells beautiful, a beautiful scent for the month of July. That would be L'Odyssée pour Homme from the house of Issey Miyake. Now moving on to August. August again, very sunny here in the UK, can become quite hot and humid at times. Another real gem that I like wearing in the warm months here in the UK, and my pick for August would be Armani's Acqua di Giorgio. So this is another fragrance which on my skin just works magically, and people really love this on my skin. That I get fantastic reactions, a lot of compliments. Again, one of my most complimented fragrances in my collection. Again, I've had this in my collection for 12 years. Wow, this fragrance is a fragrance which I only wear in the warmer months. So June, July, August. In this list, it's got the August position, but it's only in those months when it's hot outside that I pick this one up, and I don't wear it again for the rest of the year. And when the warmer months come around, the summer comes around, and I spray this on, it just starts off summer for me. It's got this beautiful aquatic, watery sort of smell. There's a sort of a lemony citrus in the background as well. But what this epitomizes for me is like jumping into the ocean. There's a sort of salty, sort of airy feel as well. It just sort of transports me to an island. That's the sort of vibe that this gives off. Performance on my skin is around 6 hours. Projection is quite good on my skin. I'm able to detect it for at least 4 to 5 hours. It's not a beast mode sort of scent. It smells very, very clean. I love wearing this. It's got like a playful sort of casual sort of vibe for me. Many people wore this as their signature fragrance in the 90s when this was released. I was just growing up at that time, so I didn't wear this until the early 2010s when I started getting into perfumery. And not many people that I know within my friend circle, family circle or community really wears Acqua di Giorgio. So I don't really smell it on other people. So when I wear this, I do feel like it's quite a unique scent for myself. I know there's a lot of flankers, but I've not really tried those flankers. I'm not too interested. I think this is still the original for me. In the summer months, this is the one that I love to wear. This is Acqua di Giorgio from the house of Giorgio Armani. That gets the pick for August. Now, moving on to September. Now, September is still a little bit warmer here in the UK, but it's definitely cooled down compared to, say, the August, July, June summer months. It's starting to become a little bit cooler, but there's still a little bit more sunshine in the air. And I think a perfect fragrance for September would be Terre de Hermes from the house of Hermes. So this is a classic, a gem from the house of Hermes, created by Jean-Claude Ellena, maybe his most popular work. So how did this smell? I think everyone's quite familiar with Terre de Hermes. Opens up with a beautiful citruses. Both the two main notes I pick up are grapefruit and orange. As the fragrance develops, it picks up a note of flint, which is so unique. I've not smelled that accord before, that sort of smell, flinty sort of smell, like you know, flint sort of smell that you pick up. And as the fragrance dries down, the orange becomes like a dirtier, the whole composition becomes earthier and dry on my skin. It sort of smells like you're picking up an orange from the ground, and the ground is like the earth is super baked and quite dusty. That's just the sort of smell that I pick up. Just works really well for this time of the year. I think in September, when it's sunny, it's quite warm, but it's a little bit cooler in the air as well. I think this works really well. Performance on my skin is excellent. I get around 10 hours of longevity. Projection is very good on my skin as well. I've gotten a lot of compliments wearing this one over the years as well. I've had this in my collection since 2014, so 10 years in my collection. It's nearly finished. I do need to get myself a new bottle. But I think this is an excellent choice for September. That's Terre de Hermes from the house of Hermes. Now, moving on to October. Now, definitely October. It gets colder here in the UK. This is when I put on the heating as well. So I put on the radiators and my gas bill just goes through the roof. And I just can't wait till the warmer months. But October, it's becoming cooler. So a fragrance that I think would work really well in October would be a fragrance from the house of Christian Dior. This is Ambre Nuit. So Ambre Nuit is focused on two main notes, and those two notes are rose and ambergris. This has a really beautiful, on my skin, a deep, alluring sort of richness. The ambergris in this, it gives off like a resinous, musky sort of feeling on my skin. Very romantic. The rose is in there. It gives off a brightness, the rose. There's a sort of spiciness in here as well. Just a very sexy, alluring, romantic sort of scent that works really well year round on my skin, but I think magically in the sort of autumn, fall time, which is October here in the UK. Because of the resinous sort of vibe, I think this works when the leaves on the trees are becoming orange or red. The color itself helps me with that as well. And autumn time, I love going on walks in the park with my wife. I live near a park which has loads of trees, and when the leaves fall, you can just walk on those crunchy red orangey leaves, which I love. And I would really love wearing this fragrance during that time. Performance on my skin is good. I get around 6 to 8 hours of longevity. Projection is in the moderate range. It's not beastly. It's not going to push out there, but it's very sensual and alluring sort of scent. And projection is in a good range where I can smell it, so I'm quite happy. I would most enjoy wearing this every single day of the month of October. So my pick for October is Ambre Nuit from the house of Christian Dior. Now, moving on to November. November definitely a lot more colder here in the UK. Again, the days are becoming shorter. There's more nighttime compared to sunlight. And November is also the month of my birthday as well. A fragrance I've picked for this month is Hugo Boss No. 1. This is a beautiful animalic sort of gem that not many people talk about here on the UK, here in YouTube Fragcom, not the UK. Though I don't see many people in the UK wearing this one. This has this beautiful opening. Now, I say beautiful, it's quite a strange opening. This sort of smells like a urinal, that sort of pissy sort of quality that this has. Now, that sounds strange, but it smells good in the most weird way. It's this really daring sort of smell, but there's this animalic muskiness in this fragrance, combined with honey, which gives off that sort of pissy quality, pissy animalic quality. The way I would describe this would be like how I would imagine. I've never been there myself, you'll have to believe me, but this is what I would imagine a lavatory or a bathroom or a gents room smells in a strip club. That's the sort of smell that this gives off. I've never obviously been in a gents bathroom in a strip club, so I would know how it smells, but that's the sort of image that comes into my mind. That's the sort of smell that this gives off. It gives off the smell of sex and dirtiness. Beautiful animalic sort of leatheriness in the dry down. There's a honey in here, there's a powderiness. I think this works really well in the winter for me. I love wearing this in the winter. As you can see, I've put in a little bit of a dent in here. It gives me like a cozy sort of quality, but there's just enough interest in here that makes this quite a unique scent, quite sexy as well. A really beautiful scent for November. That is Hugo Boss #1. Now, finishing off in December. December is holiday time here in the UK. We get off work, children off school for Christmas and New Year. I don't particularly celebrate Christmas, but I do enjoy the holiday time. Everyone's off work. You get to spend more time with friends, more time with family. You know, I love shopping during this time. It's cold here in the UK as well. So I'm going to pick another animalic classic for the wintry months. I love my animalics, and these are by no means the best animalics. Hugo Boss, and this one, Yatagan, from the house of Caron. So Yatagan is named after a Turkish sword or a Turkish saber. And this opens up quite animalic on my skin. It's got the note of castoreum. It gives off this smell of like giving a hug to a big masculine man with a hairy chest and he's sweating a little bit. That's the sort of vibe that this gives off. It's got the note of castoreum, so it's got this sort of leathery sort of smell. But the opening is definitely most challenging. As the fragrance develops on my skin, it loses a little bit of that really raw animalicness, and it gives off the smell of like greenness. I think there's the note of artemisia in this. There's a fresh, fresh spicy greenness, herb-like greenness in the opening, and there's a lovely earthiness. So imagine the smell of trees, and imagine the smell of earth and grass and mud. That's the sort of smell that I pick up, earthiness in this scent. Longevity on my skin is around 6 to 7 hours. Projection is very good for the first 4 hours. After that, it sits a little bit more closer to the skin. A really good animalic, masculine sort of fragrance. One that I really would enjoy in the winter months. So it's going to be my pick for December. That's Yatagan from the house of Caron. So there you have it, guys. Those are 12 fragrances, one for each month of the year. Have you tried any of these fragrances? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what your picks are as well for each month of the year. I think it's a very fun and interesting sort of concept. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do leave me a like and a comment below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you do. Until next time, my friends, see you later.